The Monkey King is one of the most enigmatic characters in Chinese folklore. His role in Warhammer is equally as elusive, having come into the center stage of the Cathayan political scene before, according to the new lore, fleeing into the southern lands of either Koresh or Ind. And you're probably thinking to yourself, who is he? What does he do? And why is he important? What's the old lore behind him? Well, look no further, because the hit 2008 movie Forbidden Kingdom starring Jet Li as the Monkey King has all your answers, with a resounding 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, but really, that is the purpose of our video today. We'll be diving into the Monkey King and the lore behind this character from some of the older references, especially the Genevieve book series. In addition, we're going to talk about the Ivory Road, the massive transcontinental land trade route that connects Grand Cathay in the east, the Sentinels in the Darklands, Karaz-e-Karak, all the way up to Altdorf and Marienburg. Karaz-e-Karak? Karaz-a-Karak, what the hell? The Ivory Road is a mechanic talked about in the blogs from Creative Assembly and Games Workshop, and it was highlighted in the section on Zhao Ming. But it seems to be something that Cathay as a whole pulls from. Or at least it's a faction-wide mechanic. And I've already talked a bit about some speculation as to how this mechanic might work, but it's worth repeating again today. Before we get started, if you have not yet pre-ordered Game 3, feel free to use the link in my description to the Nexus Store. It's a great way to support the channel, and Nexus gets Steam keys directly from the developer. But let's get started here on the lore of the Monkey King and the Ivory Road in Total War Warhammer 3. So our first subject we're going to talk about is the Monkey King, and really what's interesting about what we got from the lore article about the Monkey King is, in all honesty, kind of a lot of the context of how he kind of rose to power. For the most part, we don't really know a ton about his ascension. We don't know a lot about his life as the quote-unquote Monkey Prince, which was actually a title of his, and how he was as a ruler. Mainly, the majority of what we know about him comes from the Genevieve book series from Dian Qing, who is not necessarily working for the Monkey King. He's working kind of in concert with him as a right hand, intentionally, because he's actually an agent of chaos. He's an agent of Tzeentch. So, and he kind of represents, well, he is a representative of the Monkey King over to the Western Embassy and to the Embassy of Altdorf and Karl Franz, obviously. So really what we get, or a lot of the information that we have of the Monkey King, is from his perspective, which is very antagonistic. It's very much like, how much longer do I have to be this puppet's puppet? How much longer until Lord Tzeentch bestows upon me the gift of being free of the Monkey King? And it's really interesting that the Monkey King is such a prominent portion of the lore in a lot of the mentionings, but really we don't know a lot. A lot of these mentionings are very much like, hey, we talk of the Isles of the Monkey King to the east, or the hidden lands of Cathay ruled by its Monkey King. There's a lot of stuff like that throughout the lore. There's just, I think they kind of originally intended it to be like, hey, sometimes the lore would say Celestial Dragon Emperor who rules over Grand Cathay, and sometimes it would say the Monkey King who rules over Grand Cathay. And I think it was just kind of a way to create this, not a mysticism, but I'd say kind of a mystique, I guess. Yeah, a mystique. I'll go with mystique. Well, I'll stick with that. A mystique to these lands to the east, because you had that with so many of the other portions of the foreign worlds outside of the old world, with Lustria, with Ind, with Cathay, with Nippon, with the shrouded lands of Koresh, right? So I think that a lot of this information kind of comes to and for to kind of create this level of mystery about the Monkey King. So unfortunately, like I said, the amount of information we have about him is kind of scant. A lot of it really kind of has to do with just mentioning that he is the ruler of the far distant lands of Cathay. We do know from the Genevieve books that the Monkey King rises to power, rules over the Eternal Gardens, rules from that roost, and essentially has this power taken from him. And when he leaves, he kind of flees away, much in the same way that we got from the lore blurb that was delivered to us in that the CA article, saying how it was a time of turmoil. Now, what's interesting too about the new lore here with Warhammer 3 is that this almost has a Warring States period sound to it, right? You have the children of the Dragon Emperor warring with one another, creating a lot of upheaval, and allows the Monkey King to take power and claim dominion over the empire. And this is what galvanizes the children to fight against the Monkey King and dismiss him, basically send him back to the lands of the south. Now, there are a lot of different things, right? We know of the monkey warriors in the mountains of heaven. We know of stuff like the celestial dragon monks. And a lot of that kind of comes to the fore when you look into that deeper, darker lore from the Monkey King. So here's this big blurb from the 6th edition rulebook about monkey warriors. So, of the distant kingdom of Cathay, past the well-judged mountains and across the great skull lands on the other side of the mountains and mourn, and the vast steppes begin the uncharted lands. Only a single path travels to the east, known as the Silk Road. That later would be changed to the Ivory Road, guys. So as we kind of go through this blurb, it kind of tells more and more of this crazy, cool, exotic land. But we get to this little portion here. Records of travelers tell the thousand soldiers of the Emperor, the mystic brotherhoods of the monks who can kill you with the touch of their hand, and the strange monkey warriors living high in the mountains of heaven. So you get a lot of this conjuring of the very different creatures and walks of life of Cathay by diving into the kind of older lore of the setting. And from it we get, I'd say, the initial kind of glimpses to what we have so far revealed to us in Cathay. We have the Terracotta Sentinels, because it talks about these automatons that help fight for Cathay in a lot of the End Times books and a lot of the older lore. We get a little bit of a glimpse at these serpentine dragons, right? That's kind of mentioned in a lot of the lore too. And here we now have serpentine dragons. But there are other things, right? Like jade dogs guarding temples. We just talked about these warrior monks, these strange monkey warriors, stuff like that, So there are a lot of things that we still haven't gotten into with Cathay's roster that I'm hoping is revealed to show us a lot of different variety. But what this could all really be culminating in is a future DLC for the Big Daddy Monkey King, in which he is at the helm of maybe a Cathayan faction that is kind of ostracized from Cathay. If we kind of look at the Tomb Kings and we look at Arkan the Black, how Arkan the Black is this character outside of the Tomb Kings in that he borrows from the Vampire Count units as well. All the other Tomb Kings don't like him. Let's not even get into the Exile Bro up in the northwestern portion of Nagaroth right now. I don't want to go in there, but we're going to talk about the Monkey King because that might be that same style of mechanic where the Monkey King has a lot of new units that borrow from a lot of the mythological beasts or like anthropomorphic creatures from a lot of that stranger, more distant Cathayan lore. Like, again, those strange monkey warriors, or even, again, the warrior monks could come in as another portion of the Cathayan roster, which you have yet to dive into. So I think that the Monkey King, them talking about the Monkey King, I think is a pretty big thing because it confirms that he exists in the new lore. It confirms that he had a pretty prominent piece in the lore of Cathay's kind of upbringing to the current state as is, right? Remember, the Dragon Emperor and Moon Empress had been gone for 400 years until the Monkey King kind of did his whole little debacle, and the Emperor and Empress returned to help defeat him. So the Monkey King plays a part in the current status quo. And because he's not dead, he just fled to the south. There are a lot of places he could be, right? There's Ind. He could have gone just south into Ind. He could have gone south into Koresh. And he could have gone south into the Isle of the Monkey King, which is not related to the Monkey King of Cathay. But it's a coincidental name. I think actually in Indian folklore, there's also a Monkey King. You feel free to correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong on that. But again, just kind of looking at some of these things and kind of talking about something I'm going to talk about tomorrow with the Chinese mythology and how that kind of plays a part in the siblings of the Dragon Emperor. I think it could make a lot of sense that he could possibly be represented in the southern portion of the empire and be that fourth faction that is different from the other three, that is kind of that Arkan the Black outside force. But the Monkey King doesn't have a ton to go on. And I think that that's a really cool thing, right? There is some stuff that exists, but I think that the big thing here is that Creative Assembly now has carte blanche to do as they wish with creating a character that has got no visual representation anywhere in the lore, has no real representation out of happenstance and second or third person discussion about him. The Monkey King, I don't think I've read a single thing where the Monkey King actually speaks in the first person. It's always things about him or spoken about him and hearsay or happenstance. So all those things I think make for a really cool character that they could do whatever they want with without existing lore. Kind of, oh, well, this is already said in this book or in this passage. So all very exciting stuff. Now let's jump now over to the Ivory Road, which does have actually a lot more concrete evidence and detail to go off of. So we've all seen this map. We've all seen this glorious portrayal of Grand Cathay. This is where a lot of people got that hint for Nangao, for Wei Jin, and also this path or pass to the east that was hinted at in the Warhammer or Total War Warhammer 3 trailer. Also Warpstone Desert right there. So this also gives us, though, and it didn't dawn on me that this existed until I started going through the lore of the Ivory Road and reading how the Ivory Road goes through these locations, north of this, over this, here into the Howling Wastes, then over this pass and by this city and so on and so forth. But this map actually has the Ivory Road on it. If I scroll over here, this dark road, that's the Ivory Road. That's exactly what the lore kind of denotes where it goes. It says that it spirals down here and goes through Death Pass, just south of Karak Draws, how it goes up through Karazakarak. It goes over the north of Mount Silver Spear. Oh, Mount Grimfang is what it actually says in the lore. And then it goes over here, over the Howling Waste, the desolate lands filled with all number of not badgers. Who says badgers? A number of dangers, and how it goes to the Sentinels. And the Sentinels is really interesting because it is a city that is essentially a large rock formation, like pillars erupting from the ground, and it is a prominent ogre trading post. It is a ogre controlled city and protected city that is used pretty much as a neutral point. Everyone comes here and trades Rhinox furs or hides, all sorts of everything from all over the place. You'll find pretty much every walk of life. And if you go south here to Pig Barter, which is essentially the same thing as, where is it? Well, I guess it's not going to be on this map. Right over here. The new world, right? That's actually been created for humans. Pig Barter is the same thing. Pig Barter is a human colony right here in the Sea of Dread. So this is another big trade hub, but the Sentinels is the true big strong one over here in the Darklands. And it's the only like safe point between this location and this location, more or less. The lore really talks about these grand caravans that traverse this entire Silk Road, because it's not you can just hop on a horse and walk this whole thing. It's not a big deal. It's going to be easy. It's pretty scary, actually. So the caravans that travel it are almost like nomadic towns, such as their scale that a great caravan can reach a full mile in length. They are heavily defended as they have to travel through some of the most dangerous and hostile areas on the face of the world. Caravans are regularly beset by marauding wolf riders, chaos dwarves, Skaven, giants, goblins, ogres, black orcs, cave beasts, hobgoblins, giant scorpions, and dark things that stalk the shadows in the moonlight. As a result, a caravan will typically employ whole families of ogre mercenaries to act as caravan guards. A very prestigious occupation as far as ogres are concerned, where the combination of gold, good food, and near constant danger is a powerful draw. So you can see too that this thing expands all the way up north, right into Marienburg, into Altdorf, even portions of it connecting into Prague. So there is a connection point to a lot of the Warhammer world. And from Marienburg and Altdorf is where you would get trade into Astalia and Tilia. And most of the actual seagoing trade routes don't connect over here, right? They don't have a real prominent way to do so unless they go all the way down here over the Elven fortresses. So it's pretty interesting to see that this is a very big part of Cathayan lore, and it is interwoven to a lot of the Western portions of the Warhammer world's lore as far as trade and commerce go, and where a lot of little hints of mystery from Ind and Cathay come, because as you can see, this goes down here into Ind, past the city of Spires, which would be a high elf hold, And it talks about the land of the celestial dragon monks, into the kingdom of In, the land of thousand gods, with the tiger-headed people. So we might even see the terminus for this a little bit north here in the Warpstone Desert, because we already know where Zhao Ming starts, right? He starts in Shenyang, and that is supposed to be in this western portion of Grand Cathay. So this would all kind of wrap up very nicely, especially because we know too that it at least talked about in his portion of that one article, saying that he benefits from the Ivory Road. Like I've said before, we don't know if this is going to be a Cathay faction or specific to Zhao Ming, but I think that definitely having the terminus or the beginning point in Shenyang make a lot of sense. A lot of really cool, rich stuff can be done from this. And one thing that I speculated on how this could possibly come to is by taking the Total War Troy Mythos Monster Expedition and slap that into Total War Warhammer 3. Obviously, there'd be a lot of tweaking that would need to go about it, but perhaps you could essentially do a Grand Caravan Expedition or Great Caravan Expedition where you send the caravan out to do trade. And you have maybe a shorter trade options, like, hey, we're just going to go to the Sentinels and back, or we're going to go all the way to Karazakarak and back, or maybe to Altdorf and then back. And the distance maybe dictates the level of rewards that you get, right? Shorter distance, lower amount of rewards, but a lower risk. And as you go through, you're dealt with a number of dilemmas that you have to face and deal with. And maybe even starting the actual caravan, you can invest in the mercenaries that would go along with it. This would act as the army that you would then use to fight if you dealt with any of these dilemmas that resulted in conflict, which I think would be really cool and really interesting, right? You know, you're jumping into these fights all across the Darklands and the World Desert Mountains and maybe even the Old World, fighting against vampire counts as you get close to Sylvania, whatever it is. And I think that that could be pretty cool depending upon how these dilemmas are done. Is it just strictly a gold reward at the end? Sure, could be. Could it be some sort of additional resource that is only linked to the Silk Road, the Ivory Road in Grand Cathay? Sure, but also you could add in stuff here, like the ability to increase or decrease diplomatic relations with any of the races that you maybe encounter upon the dilemmas. Maybe you have, you're going about and you discover a wounded questing knight. And your dilemma is, do you help him? Do you rob him? Do you kill him? Or do you leave him be? You know, and any one of these might incur some diplomatic relations bonuses, whatever it is. So I think that using the Grand Caravan on the Ivory Road to really get a lot of narrative value out of it in Total War Warhammer 3 is huge. And I think it's like an easy knockout of the park, especially when you already have a system that exists with the monster expeditions that could be brought into the same engine, right? Because Troy and Warhammer are on the same engine, bring it into Warhammer 3 and just completely change it for all intents and purposes, right? You wouldn't want it to be 100% one-to-one the same. And a lot of people do seem to have an issue with them recycling and reusing a lot of these mechanics, but why would you? I mean, if something exists in a different iteration or form, and it can be easily kind of redone in a better form or a different, more striking form in a different format, why not take advantage of it? And I think that the Monster Expeditions is a real great way to make the Ivory Road engaging outside of a kind of what I think would otherwise be a pretty lackluster mechanic. I mean, I don't really look at this as something that could be cool outside of something that doesn't have a pretty big narrative drive like this. Take a look at something like the High Elf Intrigue in Court. That could have been so cool, but instead it was really bad. And it still is bad today. Like, even though it's gotten its improvements to the way that you generate influence and all this and that, it still is kind of a crap mechanic. So I hope that we can dodge any crap mechanics coming into Warhammer 3, because they've had Warhammer 2 to really flesh out a lot of really strong ones. They've had Warhammer 1 to even create the mechanics and the rights that we get in 2. So hopefully, like I said, in 3, we get that really strong polishing of these faction mechanics that don't really kind of seem tacked on by the end of the day and end up having to get refreshed by the end of that game's life cycle. But this kind of concludes our video here for today. Just wanted to give you guys some lore and context on the Ivory Road and on the Monkey King. Two things that have been brought up in the Creative Assembly articles, and you may be wondering, because, you know, everyone's talking about the Monkey King. Where's the Monkey King? Where's the Monkey King? Well, we don't really know a whole ton about him. So that's the fun thing about this, is that Creative Assembly can go so many directions with him. And thusly, too, the Ivory Road, which used to be named the Silk Road, can have the possibility, does have the possibility to be a really cool and engaging mechanic. And I think that even if they didn't do the Monster Expedition, there are some ways that they could really make this cool. I just hope that they actually do them versus making it kind of like a, oh yeah, you just get diplomatic bonuses and it's easy to make trade and you get a bonus for trade. Like that would piss me off. But go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, guys, what you think about the Ivory Road or the Monkey King. Do you think he is the leader of the Tzeentchian forces? Some people have said, I think he's going to be the legendary lord for Tzeentch. Do you think he could be that kind of ostracized, separate legendary lord for Cathay? Do you think he would lead his own faction? Do you think he might be the head of the Koreshi faction that we've been talking about with the Koresh fan-made project? Do you think that Creative Assembly is going to jump into that or go into Nippon or Ind? Love to hear what your thoughts are, guys, as always. But thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.